A. Smith Show starts right now.
What a time to be alive. If you're a sports fan, what a privilege to watch the best that ever did it. What a treat to watch the two best go back and forth, Messi and Ronaldo, Brady and Manning, back and forth, haymaker after haymaker, go at it. But has there ever been anything like seeing the three best of all time, the three best to ever do it, all trading blows? That's happening in men's tennis. Has it ever happened in any other sport throughout history? Has it ever happened at this level? It's the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. Will Kane in for Stephen A. Again today, the show is presented by Progressive Insurance, and all guests like you are on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You can give us a call, 888-729-3776. Coming up on today's show, there's a growing sentiment, it appears across this land, that the Dallas Cowboys should not pay Dak Prescott, that his salary ask is getting into knee-knocking territory, scary, roster-compromising territory for the Dallas Cowboys. But it's wrong. The Cowboys should absolutely pay Dak Prescott, and I'll tell you why. But it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. I'm serious. Give me the sport, give me the decade, and tell me an example of when we've seen the three best to ever do it go at it. To be a sports fan today is to watch some of the best of all time perform at the highest levels in their sport. Think about what we get to watch on any given night. We get to see Tom Brady play quarterback. In Olympic years of the last decade, we watched Michael Phelps, the greatest swimmer to ever do it, take to the lanes. Usain Bolt, fastest man alive. Serena Williams, greatest women's tennis player of all time. Tiger Woods, by many's estimation, the greatest golfer of all time. There are even out there people ready to argue LeBron James against Michael Jordan, so you get to, in some of your estimations, but not mine, say you got to see the best basketball player of all time. Analytics, nerds tell you Mike Trout's the greatest baseball player of all time. If you dig down into the numbers, you're watching the greatest do it. But in men's tennis, we might be watching something that we can say has never happened, which is not just the best and not just the second best, but the three best to ever do it go head to head. Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic squared off in the finals of Wimbledon yesterday in an over 6-hour match, the first in history to go to a tiebreaker at 12 games apiece. And Novak Djokovic beat Roger Federer in that Wimbledon final, taking his Grand Slam total up to 16. He trails Rafael Nadal, who has 18, who trails Roger Federer, who has 20. It's the three highest totals, 20, 18, and 16, of any player to ever play the game. These three are the three best to ever do it. Whoever else you want to put into the conversation comes in a distant fourth. Pete Sampras with 14 Grand Slams. What I'm telling you is we're watching something unprecedented. And Bobby Carpenter was on Get Up this morning, our ESPN football analyst, and he tried to search throughout history to come up with another example of where this has ever happened. Listen.
I'm trying to figure out in my mind, is there anything been like this in other sports? Have you ever seen three guys who at the end of their careers could all arguably be the greatest player of all time in that sport? I guess you could go back and look at maybe Gary Player, Arnold Palmer, and Jack Nicklaus, but they were pulled so far away that it really wasn't a deal at the end. But it was absolutely compelling to watch them go at it. Roger Federer had opportunities, and the Joker just finished him off.
At the time, Bobby gives a good example. Gary Player, Arnold Palmer, and Jack Nicklaus. But now you can't have that discussion because it's clear that Tiger Woods is one of the greatest golfers, if not the greatest golfer of all time. Messi and Ronaldo are the two greatest soccer players of all time, but you have to stop at a duo. You can't find a third member who is trading punches here, haymakers, back and forth like Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. You can't find it. Best I can look, in the 1980s, you had Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Thomas the Hitman Hearns, and Marvin Hagler. There was 4. And in their weight class, they're certainly all 4 in the top 50 greatest boxers of all time. And that's according to ESPN's ranking. But the greatest of all time, you got to talk about Ali. And in the 70s, you did have Ali, Joe Frazier, and George Foreman. That was one hell of a battle between those 3. But are we talking about the 3 greatest of all time? Ali won that. Ali is clearly the greatest of all time. Again, you go back in golf history, you can start finding times when you had 2 guys trading it back and forth, like Bobby Jones and Walter Hagen, Ben Hogan and Sam Snead. I don't know that you can ever find an example where you've had 3 of the best to ever do it. Not in football. What? Brady and Manning in the mid-2000s? But where's your third? And also, Joe Montana existed. Now you have Brady and Breeze, who could make an argument, I guess, but not really. You're leaving out too many greats in football. You're leaving out too many quarterbacks that belong in that conversation to try to narrow that in. You can't do it. You cannot find another example that, in my estimation, throughout sports history, gives you the 3 greatest of all time throwing haymakers back and forth. And that's what Djokovic and Federer did for 6 hours yesterday, including the moments when Federer had Djokovic on the ropes. 2 match points that he came back from. And this is one of my favorite things about tennis. It is the ultimate test of your mental resilience. At any given moment, at any given time, that game, by the statistics and the numbers, will convince you you're done, quit, it's over. It'll also convince you you've won, man. All you got to do is close them out here at 40-15 on your serve. It's yours. And you, if you are strong enough in your mind, if you don't give in to the odds, the statistics, if you don't give in to the doubts, that game continuously rewards mental toughness. It's my favorite thing about tennis. And Djokovic didn't give in. He came back. He came back from those 2 match points down and won his 16th Grand Slam. Novak Djokovic is ready not just to be in the conversation of the 3 greatest of all time trading blows, but he's ready to be the GOAT. That's what he said after Wimbledon.
I'll keep on striving to be the best player in the world and to fight for Grand Slam trophies. At this stage of my career, that's what inspires me, that's what motivates me, and obviously historic number one as well is not so far away, so it just depends on how healthy I am, how committed I am, how good I play in the next couple of years, and we hope for the best.
He's 32 years old, Federer's 37. He has career and longevity ahead of him. He has an opportunity to take it all. But for now, what we're watching is unprecedented. What we're watching is the 3 greatest of all time trade haymakers back and forth. Give me another example of that happening in sports history. 888-729-3776. And that's Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart. It's Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Will Kane filling in for Stephen A. today. And across the landscape of the NFL, there are several players now who want to get paid. But will they get paid? From Melvin Gordon to Jadeveon Clowney to Dak Prescott. The running back position, the defensive end position, and the quarterback position, teams must ask themselves, can we go all in on this guy? Or does it compromise our roster? Let's talk to somebody who knows. Let's talk to ESPN NFL front office insider Louis Riddick, who joins me now. Louis, let's start with some of the transactions in the league. Melvin Gordon first. He's told the Chargers he wants a new deal or he'll hold out. I don't see he has a ton of leverage here, Louis. It feels like running backs everywhere aren't getting the deals they want. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Look, the most amount of leverage really that running backs have is the date that they're drafted, provided that they're drafted high in their first-round picks. Maybe they ought to start holding out then and really trying to, blow up this whole slotting system, this whole slotting mechanism that happens in the first round. Because after that, they're like a new car. As soon as you drive them off the lot, their value just starts to depreciate immediately because teams are very much so and rightfully so concerned about their future performance based on the number of hits that they take. And with Melvin, considering the fact that he's missed time with lower leg injuries, knees specifically, and the fact that, history says that it's a very risky proposition to sign running backs to big-time second contracts. Just look at what happened here with, a guy like Devontae Freeman, what happened to Todd Gurley last year. And if you can get close to, I'm not saying the same, but close to equal production from replacement players like a C.J. Anderson, like a James Conner, if you can get close to the production that you would get from your frontline players for a fraction of the cost, then why would you go ahead and break the bank and extend for a player like Melvin Gordon, although he is a fantastic player, is someone who by signing him to a long-term extension would send the right message to the rest of the locker room that you are going to take care of guys who you drafted and developed and who are your own. But that's the rub. That's the dilemma that really the Chargers are in. Looking out into the future, is this smart for us business-wise? It may be good for us immediately on the football field as far as his impact this year, but is it smart for us business-wise, given what the future usually holds for running backs who have had some of the history that a guy like Melvin Gordon has, and are at greater risk the more carries that they have. It's a tough thing.
I think you brought up short term. That's a good place to focus on where more Melvin Gordon has leverage. The Chargers' window is now. Phillip Rivers' window is now. They have an excellent team to put on the field. If they're going to win a Super Bowl, they're going to do it in the short term, and you would think Melvin Gordon would be a big part of that. Talking to ESPN NFL front office insider Louis Riddick here on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain. I want to follow up on, you said a running back like Melvin Gordon. What does that mean? How high do you think he is? How elite, how special is Melvin Gordon? Are we talking about one of the top running backs in the league here?
Yeah, for me, I judge running backs based on, can they gain positive yardage? Can they continually eliminate negative plays when teams are stacking the box with 8 men at the line of scrimmage, sometimes even 9 men at the line of scrimmage, and daring you to run? Can you still get positive yardage when it's not there really to get in an ideal situation? And Melvin's one of the very best. He's one of the very best because of his lower body power, his vision, toughness on contact, competitiveness. He has it all in that regard, and that's where I think that's what vaults him into the upper echelon of running backs. He is a good receiver out of the backfield. He is not Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell out of the backfield. He's not Alvin Kamara out of the backfield, but he is quality out of the backfield. And if he was featured as such in the same way Alvin Kamara is featured, then he would be, his numbers would be even better. But he's in that category. He's in that class right now as we sit here right now. And I know, you brought up the argument about, or rather the point that their window is now with Phillip Rivers getting a little bit older. But look, if you're Chargers management too, Will, you're looking back at last year, and although obviously every game has its own specific context, they won every game that Melvin didn't start and play in last year. They were 4-0. So when you have those kind of things working against your leverage as the player, it just doesn't bode well in terms of you getting that record-breaking, not record-breaking, but that upper echelon contract, which in the case of running backs, we're looking at $13, $14 million a year. I just don't see it happening. Now, at $5.6 million that he's going to make on his fifth-year tender, I mean, he's grossly underpaid right now, present day, as it sits. But I just don't see it getting up in those numbers, and it'll be interesting to see where he's willing to come down to and actually just how high the Chargers are willing to come up.
Hey, Louis, you and I agree that there's going to be, or there seems to be the indications that there's going to be some kind of market correction on running backs. The whole analysis is not so much, hey, is money. Now the Steelers did choose to go the James Conner route over Le'Veon Bell. What I'm wondering is, do you think this correction is coming? In other words, will Gordon get paid? Will Zeke get paid? Will we see these running backs soon start getting teams walking away from them the way the Steelers did to Le'Veon Bell?
Yeah, I absolutely think it's going to be that way, especially the more you have situations where James Conner excels, where a guy like C.J. Anderson comes and excels in the latter part of the season for the Rams. When you have those kinds of things happen, teams are going to sit back and go, look, okay, let's just look at this objectively. Let's try to remove emotion out of it and the fact that we feel loyal to the player, which is a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. That's a good thing. You should be loyal. You should, in some respects, take care of your own. But when you look at this objectively and you realize that the number one job of a contract negotiator is to minimize risk to the club when you're signing a guy to a big-time deal going forward. that has to be something that is weighing on their mind right now, whether or not it's worth paying Todd Gurley, the type of money that he got paid. We don't know about Le'Veon yet. We don't know. Devontae Freeman, you saw what happened. Jerick McKinnon goes to the 49ers in free agency, gets hurt. Now, I understand it's a freak thing. Injuries are a part of the game, but still, that position carries with it a certain set of prejudices in the mind, or a certain set of, just worries in the mind of contract negotiators that are valid. And I do think as time goes on, the more success that the young running backs on rookie contracts have, and the more that continues to be the norm, the exception is going to be the Le'Veon Bell. The exception is going to be the Todd Gurley's. And right now, I bet if you ask the Rams, would they do this deal again if they had a chance to do it all over again? I'd be interesting to hear what the answer really is. If you could just go out and have a beer with one of the guys out there and say, hey, look, would you really do that deal again? Despite the fact he's fantastic. When he's on and he's healthy, there's nobody better. But would you do that again given what you could get at a much cheaper price and how you could then reallocate those cap dollars to other areas of your football team? Would you really invest that kind of money in a running back? And I think that's gaining steam, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
ESPN NFL front office insider Louis Riddick here on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Kane. Lou, I want to ask you about two other contract situations really quickly. Jadeveon Clowney with the Houston Texans. This is a position, defensive end, outside linebacker, that the league does value as opposed to running back that we were just talking about. But Jadeveon Clowney does not have a long-term deal worked out with the Houston Texans. He is under a franchise tag that's going to pay him about $15.9 million. Is Clowney a guy a team should go in on with a long-term deal?
Yeah, you want to lock him up. You want to have him be a part of your franchise because of the premium position that he plays and the level at which he has played that position over the past 3 years. He's been a Pro Bowler the past 3 years. He's one of the best run defenders in the NFL. He's one of the most powerful pass rushers in the NFL. Here's the question with Jadeveon. Is he good enough? Has his play been good enough to justify paying him in the Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald, Frank Clark, DeMarcus Lawrence range, which for all four of those guys, we're talking $20 million plus per year on average, and upwards of $40 million guaranteed at signing before you do anything else. You sign your name to the paper, you get $40 million guaranteed in your bank account at some point in time. Is he in that range? No. Does he think he's in that range? I'm sure he's looking at those contracts and going, that's where I belong. If the Texans thought he was in that range, this would have been done. This would already be taken care of. So obviously there's other things, despite what, other than what he has done on the football field, that is causing them to pause a little bit and slow down on this negotiation. And if you believe even more so some of the chatter that's coming out about the fact that Bill O'Brien, the head coach, and Brian Gaines, the general manager who was fired, didn't see eye to eye on this one as far as just what his true value was to the football team, then it's not a surprise that we're sitting here right now on deadline day not expecting a deal. And that's interesting. That's interesting to me because he is a good player. He is not the kind of player you want to start playing on franchise tags year to year to year. I think he's better than that. He deserves more than that. But it's going to be interesting, absent the GM down there in Houston, just how quickly this deal is able to get done in the future, if it's able to get done in the future. Because if it's done today, then that's it.
What was the chatter? Which one was in on Clowney? Gaines or O'Brien?
That Gaines wanted to, and O'Brien did not.
O'Brien not in on Clowney.
That's the word that's out there, yeah.
Front office insider. We'll Go ahead. What?
No. I was just going to say we'll see what happens there, but all indications are you're not going to see a deal here before the end of today, and it'll be franchise tag or nothing. And he hasn't signed anything yet at this point in time, so that looks like a situation that's it's way down the road as far as when it's going to be resolved.
The last one I wanted to ask you about, Lewis, is Dak Prescott. The Cowboys do not have a deal in place for Dak Prescott, and there seems to be, at least in the media among talking heads, a growing opinion that it's reaching numbers that are balk-worthy. In other words, is Dak Prescott worth $32 million a year? Is he worth $30 million a year? Does he belong in that class that guys like Rodgers and Roethlisberger are in right now? You know how I feel. I think he is a franchise leader. I think he's a quarterback that can win a Super Bowl, and you don't let that kind of quarterback walk away. But is he approaching scary numbers for you, Lewis?
Sure, he absolutely is, and I've said that before when this whole conversation really started about them trying to reach long-term deals with some of their premier players, whether it be him or Amari and Ezekiel. So yeah, it is scary. It's not that he is not someone who you, without a doubt, want as your franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future. That's not the question. It's just about the price. It's just about what is the average per year, what is the guaranteed money, what are we really comfortable with, also relative to what else we need to get done with the rest of this roster. Is it worth having to struggle at other positions because we paid him what Aaron Rodgers is getting paid or what Carson Wentz is getting paid or what Matt Ryan is getting paid? Can he make up the difference? Like, those teams obviously feel as though those guys can make up the difference. And I don't see him in that category. And if the Dallas Cowboys saw him in that category, this deal would be done. So, there obviously is a little bit of a gap, a little bit of a divide that needs to be bridged still at this point. And it'll be interesting to see where they come in. There's no question he's looking at Carson Wentz's deal, and he's going, I need to get paid like that. Because I can justify objectively looking at statistical numbers that I should be in that category. And it's not just an objective exercise as far as negotiating contracts. It's really not. And right now, look, if Dallas was so sure this would be done already, considering the fact that he is the priority of the big three down there. So it's another situation that'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
All right, ESPN NFL front office insider Louis Riddick here on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain. Thanks, Lou.
You got it, man. Thanks.
Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. So you heard Louis Riddick, and there are others. There's so many out here starting to say, don't pay Dak. That's scary. That's dangerous for the Cowboys. Nonsense. So somebody needs to offer the rebuttal, and I will. You pay Dak, and you pay him now.